Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of 100% Uptime with Ken and Dave, a podcast by P2P Labs. I'm Ken Adams, co-founder and president of P2P Labs, and joined today, of course, by co-founder and CEO Dave George. Dave, who do we have the pleasure of speaking with today?
So Ken, today we are joined by Martin Boyles, CEO of Boomcoms, joining us from the United Kingdom. Martin is an industry veteran, having spent, I believe, 3 decades in the telecom sector, helping providers, CSPs, resellers, MSPs, and channel orgs rethink how they engage customers, how they deliver modern communications, and how to just overall improve their organization. Today, through Boomcoms, he's focused really on helping service providers simplify operations, embrace automation, and prepare for the next wave of communications powered, I would say, with deep analytics and artificial intelligence. This is going to be an interesting conversation, Ken, because we're not just going to talk about the technology, but also leadership, relationships, innovation, and where the telecom industry is probably heading. Martin, with all that, welcome to 100% Uptime.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure to do the podcast, and I hope the audience gets some value from what we're doing this evening. This evening in the UK, of course.
Of course.
Yes, thank you for joining us from across the pond. So, Martin, let's start at the beginning. I'd like you to think back. What originally brought you and drew you into the telecommunications and technology sector some roughly 3 decades ago?
Yeah, I can't believe it. It is 34 years ago since I started, and bizarrely, it wasn't my first career choice. But I was very aware of my twin brother's success globally, and he joined an American company you might know of called Motorola, and became the first ever English vice president. And I saw him just go from strength to strength. The emergence of mobile was happening. He took the global transition from analog to digital for them. And I needed a career change. And I thought there's something in this telecom. So I actually picked up the paper and looked for a company that was going to give me a starting point in telecoms. And I didn't want to do mobile. So for me in the UK, we just had the deliberalisation from British Telecom. And at that point, it was an exciting start in this sector, and it's not stopped. In fact, it's been on rails that are getting faster and faster and faster. All the technologies are moving fast. And Dave, you'll be aware of this more than most. You know, when Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone with analog lines, that lasted the longest period. ISDN2, ISDN30 came in, which I helped BT, Siemens, and Toshiba bring those products into the UK. Took about a year each time. That was the utopia. They were never going to change, I was told. So I put a lot of effort in getting them ready for the marketplace. And if you think about the duration they've been in place, that's even shorter. And then, of course, lots of transitions. And eventually, I think I sold my first business in the VoIP to get into VoIP. That was 18 years ago. So it's been a long journey with the VoIP. And I've got to be honest, I just wonder where that technology that replaced telephone systems, PBXs as we call them, is going to go. I think that's going to be a slightly shorter duration in many ways than ISDN, which was shorter than analog. So that's probably a very brief background to what I've done.
Thinking about your career, right, especially going back, 20, 30 years, do you think that those, I'll call it leapfrogging from one predominant technology, let's call it analog phone service. Ultimately, you mentioned ISDN, BRI, and PRI, T1, et cetera. And then ultimately voice over IP, and then UCAS being a more concise version of that protocol. Is that the common thread that ultimately gets you to where you are today with Boom? Or was there something else early on that also sort of led you to this idea of what Boom is? And we'll get into Boom in a little, but I'm just curious from your career perspective, was that the common thread?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. you have to go back in time to 1993 in the UK, and only the managing director of the first company and his accountant had green screen desktop PCs. We didn't have anything. We didn't
Right.
even have faxes. As salespeople, we used to have to drive an hour or 2 hours back to the office with the quotes that we'd written in the laybys and post them through for the receptionist to type up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mobiles had just come out. So the transition has not just been in the unified communications to where we are today and change of communications. It's generally how we do business. How do we function as an SME? What do SMEs need today, which they didn't need 10, 20, 30 years ago? You have to think back. It's not just the voice side that changed. You then had fax machines. Before that, you had telexes, which we sold telexes, believe it or not. And we were the only competitor to BT. And I think the transition is constant. You've got to be aware of it. We've always been pioneering as an organization and people. We brought the second ever voicemail into the UK. And we got that from Backer Rattan, and it was Retrix voice boards and software. And we built our own voicemail system. So this is before the PBX manufacturers hooked on. And that's where we started this journey with an IVR, something that can answer your calls and give options without somebody on reception having to put every call back and forth across your business. And if you think back to the receptionist, that was a labor intensive job. It was actually a
Yes.
funnel neck. You only had so many lines. You had to, for certain businesses, if you wanted to be a trader or you wanted to be a travel agent, you'd had to have two phones on your desk because you had to take a call and make a call to do the transaction. And that was something in the UK called over square working. Now, the modern telecom specialists wouldn't really understand that. They wouldn't really understand the journey, but you need to understand the journey, because by understanding the journey, you understand the sales process, you understand the psyche of the customer, the person buying. The speed at which customers buy now is quicker. They make decisions quicker generally. And that's because they're an educated buyer. And that changed about a decade ago with the advent of Mr. Google. They could go in. That also tarnished the way that we work and made it harder because they knew the pricing. They knew the products. They could go out very easily and all of a sudden
Educated
bring in
customer.
10 or 20 partners
Yes.
and bring an audience of half a dozen together to make the best quote for them, which hasn't necessarily been the best for our industry. So this is about when the changes happen, what we have to do as an industry is help the customer to attract them to the new technologies. We have to be the expert that they trust, but also we have to realize the price model will change. It's always going to go down, and there's always going to be an emerging technology around the corner. It's the timing of that. When do you go to the customer? When do you sell it? When do you explain it in a terms that the customer understands? But to answer the question, what drove me to do what I do, I was asked by 6 leading people in the UK. You've done it for the market leader. I won't mention the name, but in the UK, I sold a business to them. I helped them launch their first VoIP product. It took me 18 months. The incumbent carrier, BT, I worked with a worldwide leader at the time. I think they probably still are. And they took 2 years to bring their product to market. What I did was speed up that process. The incumbent carrier, I was the 37th VoIP platform that they started and didn't expect to finish the journey. By the way, they're still using 90% of what I designed today, all those years on.
Nice.
So it's a case of where does the customer fit into that? To answer the question, they used to have things like one portal, but actually it meant you've got this one portal over here, then you've got another portal over here, and another. Oh, and you might want your own portal. And so what I've tried to do with Boom, I was strongly advised, it's one pane of glass, it's one portal. And for me, coming from a customer service and operational background, I really did not like calling up a tech support business on a network and they say, oh, I fixed it now. I said, how do you do it? I'll do it myself. Oh, no, we've got a different system to you. So for me, it was really important that the customer at the desk in today's world has the same experience as the person supporting it, the reseller, the partner, the same services and experience that you're giving them for support, and then back to us. We all have to use that same portal to understand and make it a transition of information so it's remedied as quickly as possible. Because I think the Generation Z in particular are quite intolerant. They're not used to waiting. So we need to make sure that we're attacking all the audiences. We're looking after as many aspects of the best service that we can give. And at the same time, keep an eye on change, what's coming up.
So
and I think
Martin,
that's the important bit.
yeah, so you've made it quite obvious that your views on customer and partner relationships has absolutely evolved based on the change in technology and also the pace, right?
Yes.
The rapid changes that we're seeing today. But I'm still going to keep you back 2, 3 decades ago just for one more question.
Yeah.
Were there earlier experiences that might have shaped you even understanding that leapfrogging and those requirement changes as things sped up? Like, what prepped you? What was
Okay.
that, what was that lightning in a bottle where you went,
Okay. So,
I
so
got it.
yeah. So back then, I think you could look forward by going to the corporates. What technologies are they using? What are they spending on software? Where are they taking that direction? The corporates had it because they could afford it. But in the
Mm,
UK, like in America, 95+% of the business users are small to medium-sized enterprises. Two
right.
things. One is they don't have the corporate governances and coverages, and they don't go for the same types of contracts that mean they have to have those credentials or badges of honor. And secondly, they can simply not afford to go out and buy, in today's world, a CRM that's going to cost them $95 per month per user. And then they're going to buy a PBX replacement, which is going to be $20, $30 per month. Then bolt on this, then bolt. They need a solution that is locked tightly together, that can interact with other solution providers so they don't throw away what they've already invested in. And some ways, many won't do that. So therefore, you can't get the sale anyway. They're not going to get rid of their CRM, but they spent years investing in understanding
They're
how their
embedded in
business
it,
works.
right?
Right.
Absolutely. So I think it's a case that the bit that really draws my attention is keeping an eye on that pace of change, the customer needs. The customer doesn't know necessarily what is available to them, and it has to be an effective price point. In the UK, I call it the get out of bed money. There's got to be a food chain stack of margin that allows everybody to take enough from the equation that the customer can still afford the end price to them. And if we can't achieve that, you've got a big problem. But it
Mhm.
really is a case of giving that customer a fighting chance in many cases against some of the corporate animals that are now, they used to 20, 30 years ago, they'd feed off a table that's up here. They're now feeding off the junior tables that SMEs were allowed to just feast on. They're now being attacked at that level as well. So I think there's lots of reasons everybody should be exploring and thinking back in time. I always think you need to think back to go forwards.
Mhm.
Um, so so that would be a general answer to that one.
Would you say, based on what you just said there, um, for me, I would argue most of telecom was based on the enterprise first and the SMB second. What
Yes.
I just heard you say, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but your experience and your understanding of the market and the market share of small businesses versus enterprise, your thought process and your direction that you've gone might be more for the SMB than just the enterprise. Is that a fair
I think
evaluation
it's
of what you
very
said?
I think it's very fair. That was definitely the model originally. It was to concentrate solely on SME and attachment to that as an audience because it's the largest by number of seats available. It's
Mhm.
probably a little bit easier. Corporate, you tend to go into a vetting situation. You go and get a spec. You have to then
Right.
adopt it. It takes a lot of time, effort, and resource. And many cases, it's going to go to the incumbent. So you're fighting to get it back off of somebody that's already got the
Right.
best chance. So yes, it definitely was. I think now with I call it that we used to think the Earth was a globe in telecoms, and you'd have a district over here, Germany, let's say, with Siemens, that were 10 or 15 years ahead of the game. You'd have somebody over in Africa, which were 15 years behind. You maybe had Britain and America sitting in the middle ground. I think the world's now flat. We all play at exactly the same level. We all have access to exactly the same software and tools for the very first time. And that culminates from data networks. And I think the biggest pain, just to highlight really, if you go back 18, 20 years when broadband first came out in the UK, very similar to, I'm sure, America,
Mhm.
you may have had more cable than we ever did, but we used to run off of the telephone line after the dial up modems. But we all didn't understand what was packet loss, jitter, latency. We didn't understand that
Right.
on that 2 meg service, when we went up to 2 meg, Why can't we have 100 extensions all being able to talk at the same time?
Right.
There's been a long journey of understanding. There is no doubt in my mind now, going back through all the PBX brands I've sold and touched, I would say at the beginning, 18 years ago, there was no way you could compare voice over the internet with what you can get from a PBX. But now
No.
you actually can, and it's far more flexible, and it gives a solution. You could get internet on the moon, and you could have a VoIP call. That's
Yeah.
possible.
I,
But I think the difference,
let
yeah,
me
go on.
interject there. I would
Yeah,
actually say that in some cases, the German, UK, and American legacy infrastructure in some ways could be holding back
yes,
progress,
Hmm.
whereas those markets that you talked about the flat Earth here, um, emerging markets aren't beholden to a legacy infrastructure that's 20 years old or even older in some cases.
but if you look at an Australian footprint, the huge continent in its
Yes.
own right, it's actually, I think, 85% of businesses are in 5 cities. When you looked at our broadband speeds, when we were getting up to 10 to 100 meg on a standard home broadband, they were still effectively on dial up, but they
Yeah.
actually overtook us. And they now have a fantastic network, which is everything comes back, as you know, to your network capabilities. If you don't have a
Yes.
good network, it's not managed properly, you don't understand firewall settings and things that can stop VoIP, that is still a problem today as it was
Right.
15, 18 years ago.
It
And so
is.
I think there's a missing education as well. I was going to say that when we sold Toshiba 30 odd years ago, Toshiba wouldn't allow an engineer to start the process of being an engineer on the switch until they had done a minimum, and they had to have an electronic background as well, 2 week training program followed up by a further 2 weeks. A salesperson wasn't allowed to sell it until they'd completed a 2 week intense sales process of understanding. To this day, I can remember PCOUIF or whatever, or PEKUNF card. It's that is in my DNA now. But I think with VoIP, the danger is as well. There are companies that are saying, "Oh, we do VoIP." Now, the danger is that they need to understand quite a few parameters still. So I think
Mhm.
actually going through an organization that understands that, like yourselves, is that you're not going to allow that adoption through people that just don't get it. They won't give the best service, they won't give the best understanding, and therefore they won't be able to sell the attributes of today's. You mentioned analytics, you mentioned some of the other stuff that we do. I don't think many companies understand what they're missing. But if you were to show them, oh, wow, that's fantastic. That's really going to help me. I'm going to understand. For instance, on our analytics now, you have your telephone PBX stats, but we also give you all of your Microsoft Teams stats. So that an individual is sat there and their boss is saying, you're not making enough calls. You're targeted to 200 calls a week. And they said, well, I'm working hard. Well, you're not, because I can see you're doing 2 hours on the phone, forgetting that they've got all these back-to-back meetings taking place on Teams.
Uh-huh.
So
Right.
by merging that technology together, and it's very easy for us to do with our analytics, all of a sudden you have your eyes open to this person that's now doing back-to-back meetings, and actually they're meant to work an 8 hour day, but you're getting 10 hours out of them. So actually throttle back on giving them a hard time. So it's all about the understanding, and from that
Right.
understanding you can improve.
So that's to our listeners hearing about
Mm-hmm.
boom comms, excuse me, for the
That's all
first
right.
time. What is boom, and what problem or what scenario are you solving for service providers, resellers in the channel?
But I think we recognize the same as you early on. So the core switch is really important. You've got to have something ultra robust, bulletproof.
Yeah.
Something, we've had our switch, it's been upgraded. So we did a big refresh of all of our blade servers. Since that blade server technology was changed and we did the upgrades, we have had 100% uptime on our voice communications for nearly 5 years. Well, it is 5 years actually. It was 5 years this April. To me, that's critical. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think everybody can have that comment out in the marketplace. And I think what Boom does is we take a core switch, which is robust, it's fantastic. It has a lot of the attributes because that's where we feed. But what we like to do is build this layer that you have one layer, but it has all of the bits bolted together. They all interact together. They all come back to analytics and the information flow to the user to give them the best understanding, whether it's call queues, wait times, whether it's usage times, whether it's who's in and out of a hunting group, how many people have you got waiting at any one particular time. So live stats as well. So I think it's ultra important to understand that, but it's also bringing together For us, we have an eSIM that allows people to act on the road as if they're in the office. So you're recording their calls, you're transcribing their calls, you're giving that same experience to a mobile user as you would a desk phone. And as we move forward in time, definitely desk phones are becoming probably more like doorstops than ever before, because we all use headsets, we all use mobile, we all use tablets, we use PCs. We have to accept the transition, which is hard probably for us in this audience, because we like having that phone with buttons. You know, it's our history. But I think the day is coming that is going, and we like to, and we're very fortunate. We have a great technology team that, you know, you'll get to experience. We have people that come to, we had one in the UK a couple of weeks ago. They said we've got this 100 and I think it was 150 seat school. They've got a criteria. They need it to do this. Can't find it, but it's there. And we said, okay, we'll have a play. We went back and said proof of concept done yesterday from yesterday's call. We'll have it delivered in 2 weeks. Now, if you go to some of the very large organizations, it'll be considered at one of their review meetings. 9 months later, you'll get knowledge that actually it's gone into the production list. 2 years later, they might deliver it. But when they deliver it, the moment's gone. We've moved on. And I think that's the danger we face. We've got to be reactive. But the interesting thing is that one school in England requiring that one feature, I think will be common across all schools. So now we can create the vertical for our partners to go out and go, we look after you as a school. We've been told that this feature's come into play and you need it. And it's effectively, it's 999, our emergency number, being able to be broadcast out to any member of staff that you choose at any time of day, night, or otherwise. You know which classroom has made that, and we use our AI technologies to do all of this. And so that school is delighted. You know, they can say thumbs up, we've got that service. So I think speed of change for us, understanding, we don't always commit to that, but where possible, we'll support our partners with a feature. And of course, if it's a common feature that we can use across our platform, we make no charge. We just allow that to come in as the new technologies that are required in that space.
Right. So you democratize it across the whole platform then. Beautiful. So now I'm going to have you think back just to when Boom got its founding.
Yep.
What was the gap or the gaps that you identified in the market, you know, that aha moment that made you and your other partners believe that Boom needed to exist?
Okay.
And
So,
why,
yep.
and let me ask, and why is that especially important today? And perhaps even add from a user's perspective, what advantages or differentiators will they see because of the why Boom exists?
Okay, so the original concept was to disrupt the market leading product that was in the UK at the time, which our name was Broadsoft. I'd helped Broadsoft launch in the UK. I helped them design that product, redesign. BT then took the product, a company called Gamma took the product. But the one thing I recognized was when you started adding up, in those days, they were called a la carte features, I think they called them. And you had a base license, an advanced base license, a business license, a business plus license, an IVR license, a hunt group license. I won't go on. There was just 15, 20 different licenses. So
I ran out of fingers.
Yeah, so you mentioned at the beginning
Exactly.
about simplifying for everybody. You know, that confuses the customer, it confuses the reseller. They want to get in and get out with the order. So I set up with a anchor distributor a product that simplified it. So we only had one seat, we only had one analytics. But when you look at it, the one thing that I design in all of my software suite, and I ask the developers, I want this product in our portfolio. Can we add one or two what we call unique selling points? And I'm sure it's the same in the States.
It is.
But they come back and say, well, we've added those couple of unique selling points you mentioned, but we've added a few more. And that's where Boom specializes. For instance, just to bring that to reality, if you go to most companies and you have a supply chain and you want call recording, yes, you can do call recording. Great. Do you do it free for a period as we do? After that period, can you store it for life? When it's accessed, is it there immediately? Can you download it immediately? Send it, remembering Gen Z as well, where they don't like waiting. Can you play it straight away? Can you distribute it straight away? Has it gone through AI straight away? Now, all those attributes sound common in our world, but some people still get charged for the megabit storage. I know a major player globally that if you go past 24 months with a recording, they put it in something called a deep freeze or something of that nature. And if you want it, it takes 48 hours to get back. But if you've got a need for that, you're stopping your business functioning. So what we do is give unlimited storage. We don't charge per megabit. It doesn't matter. You just get the low cost analytics price, but it includes the storage for life. It's there immediately. So if you have millions of calls as a reseller, or your customer has millions of calls, and you press a button, you don't want it to go processing. And then you walk away and make a cup of coffee and it takes 15 minutes. And then it's not even mediated when it's come through to you. You want it instantly. So that's what our software does. It's an instant response to the request. The recording's there, it's downloadable, it's playable. And I think when you start looking at those USPs across the board, the different products that we have, I think that really helps the person that does the main work at the beginning of the relationship to win the business. It gives them, if they're clever, they know their competitors don't have those features. So they can talk around the journey and the conversation with the buyer and say, oh, do you want call recording? Oh, yeah, yeah. And they only need to ask a few questions to ascertain which other suppliers are in there. Oh, do you want a megabit price? Oh, yeah, everybody's given us a megabit storage, right? And do you want oh, no, they can't all do instant access. Oh, we can do that. And by the way, we don't charge it. Equally, if there's some partners out there that want to be creative and earn some revenue from that space and they don't have a problem, that's extra money they can earn in revenue as the reseller with that customer. So there's multiple ways of looking at it. We don't stop people from doing that. As you know, you do your own billing to your partners, and therefore all your partners do their own billings from your price point, your book. But it doesn't mean they can add value and therefore add extra profit to them as an organization. So there's different ways of looking at it. We don't preclude it.
The topic that everyone's been talking about for the last 2 years is AI.
Yes.
I think you'd agree. And Boom has a product that also has AI. Actually, you have multiple versions and iterations of AI. But the first one I just want to talk about is BERT. I believe that's what you call it. If I describe it incorrectly, please correct me. But I'd call it a self-help agent.
Yes.
Basically, it's an agent that helps the service provider and their customers as well. What inspired that initiative? Was it just another Me Too product, or was there something you were seeing and wanted to actually do with BERT? And is there something different about BERT than, say, some of the other self-help or agentic AIs that you've seen out there on other platforms?
Sure. I think that's a really good question. And it kind of goes back to where we were earlier when I said about the education of the engineer, the person that's doing that support call. Many companies use customer service agents to actually just excuse me, guys. Hang on. Sorry, you're going to have to editing, but it's going to thunderstorm here in a minute, and I just didn't want that noise to come through there.
Oh, no worries.
So let's answer that question, Dave. I think it's a great question. So when you look back at the way people are service looked after, often now it's through customer service agents. So they're not actually engineers. They're just repeat. I've had that question before. How did I resolve it? When you look at the engineering requirement, it's an expensive head in your organization. When you look at the Gen Z and the customer at the desk, they actually want the problem resolved there. They don't want to wait and raise a ticket. They don't want to wait for a response. Even if the SLA is a good one, it might take an hour. They could really do with getting, why is my DDI not coming through and ringing my phone? So BERT is designed back from a BT engineering day. You tested and you had a bit error rate test that you had to do on the line. And so that's where BERT came from to start with. So BERT is a chaperone and operates at the level of the partner and the customer and the user. So if you are the user, he will talk in user language. He will assume you don't have access to the upstream tools. So he understands that for starters. But what he also understands is your interface, but then he understands the full telephony PBX exchange and how that's programmed, how that's configured, how that's working. So you can ask a simple question, but BERT can look at it from all aspects. Not only that, because we have a full help article system in the platform, on every page there's question marks, you press it and up comes information. BERT can actually read and understand the PDFs and understand the dialogue that's contained. So when he gives an answer, it's a very well thought through answer, utilizing all aspects. And we did it because we found that partners didn't have the caliber of engineers to support in some cases. Well, they're getting more successful. And of course, putting in the UK, maybe a desk-based engineer support person, you're probably talking 25 to 30K. And you've really got to get to that pressure point of failing your customers before you can really afford to start putting more heads in. So we see BERT is a free service from us, which allows everybody in the food chain. So the customer at the desk will use BERT or on the mobile. The reseller will use, and the environment partner with you will use BERT. You will use BERT. We also use BERT. It also gives flexibility for follow the clock, as we are based in the UK. BERT will be answering questions that you might put to us when we're asleep. It will allow people to have 24/7 support, but there's no cost to that 24/7. So that problem at the beginning where you might have, let's call it an undertakers or vets or something of that nature that has to have 24/7, and you giving a support contract have to say, we're going to treble that cost because we've got to have somebody on call for you. They've got to be educated. So you can take that cost away, which means you can put that money that the customer would have spent or your competitors are still charging and take the advantage. So we see BERT doing more and more. Eventually, BERT already does certain functions, but people in outbound groups can do transcriptions, can give action points, can put those to the notes, can create alerts to say, oh, BERT, put an alert against Ken Adams on this one so that he gets the detail of this call and the notes that we've done. So BERT is a engineering function, but with lots of other hidden benefits that any business could take advantage of. So low cost, stopping you spending money is the important bit, making you more profitable, and the customer not pestering for stupid questions like, why is my D&D button not working? It's because you haven't pressed it. You know, it's that type of thing.
So sticking with AI here, there's also a lot of conversations about voice AI or agentic AI for both inbound and outbound communications. What excites you most about where that technology is heading, and where do you think the industry still maybe misunderstands it, and what is Boom planning or doing about it?
Right. So immediately to answer that, because it is the most exciting subject matter at this point in time. So one thing that we have working well within the business is the culture that we don't know all the answers and it's moving fast. So we engaged and get the support from a professor of Warwick University who actually has been doing, since he left university, AI. He's a professor in for 30 years, believe it or not. So we asked him to vet and culturally look at what we're doing. That then led us in the early days not to, and I think most people are still doing this as wholesale of products into our industry. You want a job done, so you go up to the shelf and you take a piece of AI software, you use it and you put it back on the shelf. And you do that with all the different LLMs or whatever it is that you're asking, a transcription or language translation, whatever it may be. That's what most people are doing. We actually look at hub and spoke. So we use all of the different AIs plus our own software. That gives us two advantages. If something that comes out that's quicker, better, cheaper, we can substitute. And in the early days, we found software that was better and it was actually 85% cheaper. So, of course, we want to bring that to our customers because it's giving a better service. It's more financially rewarding for everybody in the food chain. So we have the hub and spoke. We can substitute. Understanding what the customer's needs at work gets really exciting. The customers at the moment have no idea what's just about to happen. Most people at the moment are looking at replacing the IVR recorded message.
Right, exactly.
That's really not going to set the world alight. You know, what you need is a piece of software and an AI agent that greets with the right level of understanding that person. So, for instance, if they're a VIP status, if they're on debt hold, don't put them through to sales for more goods because they haven't paid their bill. It has that deep understanding of what's going on in your organization as a customer. That's where we want to take it. So that AI is intelligent in many ways to what the customers set up. And we tend to put what we call guardrails up. So we have templates. We have the ability to type in the text and it will give you a standard recording that you choose. But I think it is ultra important to understand the differentiation between what we've done. So most companies at the moment, IVR replacement, reception replacement, but it stops there. Can I talk to somebody in sales? Yes, I'll put you through. What we actually want is, as you will know if you call my DDI, I have a PA. My PA is Samantha. Samantha will actually ask why are you calling, Martin? How can I help you? And go through a normal process. And it's varied, it's not scripted. And she will block the nuisance sales calls. She'll know that that isn't somebody I know. This is somebody that is just trying to get through to the CEO. And she'll politely block, she'll take a message and she'll let me know. But if it's somebody she feels has got an appropriate request to speak to me, she will then dial me. Hi, Martin, I've got such and such for you. He says it's about this. Do you want to take the call or do you want me to tell it? So it's actually a proper, intelligent handshaking of the call.
It's not just it's not just an AI do not disturb. It's an AI who is intelligently making a decision to help you.
And then, of course, you've got to look at different areas. Customer services, you might want a friendly stance. Debt chasing, you might want a firm stance. So we're using all of that technology now to make it happen. The one thing that I will say is critical. People must understand at this stage, you will scare customers off if they think this is going to replace staff or they have that aspiration. My view is we are humanizing AI. So one thing we do, every AI agent that we issue, we give them green hair. Because once you start using our software, you forget that AI because they're immersed in your sales team structure. Everything a human sales team person can do, or customer services, our AI agents can do. And we're establishing things that AI are developing. For instance, we know if somebody goes through to a voicemail, and if you think about normal analytics, the users listen to the recording, left a message, so they've connected. That would be a tick in the box. They've had a communication, and you think they've spoken because it might be a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. But of course, it's a non-event. You just listened and left a message. So from doing this for AI, we established there's 20 different ways that voicemail integrates. It's not just one, not one fits all. And we now know it's a voicemail, and we intelligently understand that. So on our records, it might say you made 140 calls, your target's 200, but 60 of those calls actually went through the voicemail. They were ineffective. So it's using the technology, again, taking it back to where the customer sees the benefit, helps them understand their business. So we want AI, especially at the early stage, to support the function of the business, either allow you to make more phone calls, allow you to take the pressure off of your experts. And we train it by securing the information. It's not using worldwide access. We ask customers, where possible, that they give us all of their training material, all of their website, all of their documentation. And that AI becomes your best trained member of staff. So it's supporting.
Is that something that you preface with the customers or your resellers and your other customers, your other agents and so forth? Do you preface that, hey, you do need some good data in order to develop this correctly, right? This doesn't just organically grow without at least some form of a starting point, right? They have to have a website that's robust. They have to have certain data. Do you talk about that with the
I think that's critical. No, I think it's critical, Dave, because at the end of the day, you're going to gap fill where they probably left it for 3 or 4 or 5 years thinking they've got everything up to date. So it gives a chance to refresh. It gives a chance to make sure the data makes sense as well. And we would say go through a testing phase. Although AI is intelligent, there was an issue a few months ago where somebody started allowing AI to talk and they had an increase in charges because the AI started talking for 2 months solid. And they discussed many things. And so you've got to remember that AI is evolving very fast. For us, it's also about, for instance, we all live in a very cosmopolitan world, especially within cities. You have services, public services, and services where you need multi-language. Well, for us now, recognize the code that's been dialed. So if it's Paris, start with a French voice. If it's London, start with a UK voice. If it's America, and you've got maybe 3 cities, New York, London, and Paris, you can start the process of answering that call with the right language and right voice. But interestingly, the software that's soon to come out from us will, and this is within a few weeks, if you want to call, it will recognize somebody struggling maybe with English, and it will say, I'm very sorry, you seem to be struggling. Do you have another preferred language you'd rather I talk to? And it will just do it, and straight away you'll be then talking in a different language. It will then do 2 transcriptions, one in that language and one in English. So it's thinking it through. It's not just rushing at these things. It's thinking about absolutely customer experience, business experience, and it's about improving. And the green hair has been really important in the partners that we've taken this to. because the staff at first often will say, I'm resilient to this, you're going to take my job. Then after a few months of using it, you go, actually, don't take away AI. It's got rid of all that heavy lifting and shifting that I hated doing, and I'm more effective. Then you've got to think about where you can use it. So if you think about a school in the winter in the UK, we often have boilers that go bust. You've got 1,000 kids, they're all turning up. Johnny's being dropped off by the mum or the dad, you don't know which. So suddenly your school has got this dilemma. I've got to call 2,000 parents on their mobiles,
right,
and to stop them coming to school. And I don't want the kids dropped off and the parents just run away to go to work, because we're not here. The gates are closed. You can upgrade that on AI instantly. It's just done for you. And you have an intelligent record of it. You have the confirmation, the transcription, the recording of that call. You've got the positive nature, the outcome. You can set the parameters. You might need to call somebody back if they're not too sure. It's a tool to be used. And I think the businesses that adopt it and embrace it early doors, which is now it's ready to be used, start adopting it, start using it. It will help your business grow. It will push money into your bottom line, and it will give a better customer experience. So AI is yet, my only grave concern is the media says everything AI, and it's not. You've got to look at it at your specialist subject matter experts and in your sector. And telecoms is different from the other AI type solutions that we don't need to use because we're doing real-time voice AI, which is the bit that you're looking to get through us.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, you'd agree. We always talk about human plus AI as a collaborative approach as opposed to one or the other. We think there's a huge win utilizing AI where it's appropriate and makes sense. But it shouldn't be a replacement model, and it should not, job displacement should not be the end all be all criteria for the benefits of AI, for sure.
No, and I think you both agree that there's a lot of companies talking about AI at the moment, but they don't have a price, but they don't have a feature product guide. They haven't actually launched it yet. So, there's wholesale people chomping at the bit, and they're saying, well, it looks good. When can I get my hands? Oh, it's not quite ready for that. Oh, I can't give you a price. And I think getting in early with a reasonable price that's going to give a great product will set us aside from everybody else. And of course, as you know with us now, we don't stand still. So what is AI today in Boom will not be AI next month. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the PBX features. Sorry, the PBX
across all
features
AI.
are static.
Exactly. And you hit it on the head, and sort of Dave, it's I'm watching a lot of these in our space who are using all the third-party 11 Labs, VP, et cetera, which is great, but it's not real-time voice that we're all used to in this industry. It's still delayed, no matter how you slice or dice it. It's getting better quickly, but it doesn't replace that real-time communication like we're having right now, right? What was really impressive with your green-haired AIs. In the demos we've had on it, there is not a delay. There is not that, hold on a second, I have to check my LLM to see what I'm going to talk to you about, or go check a website to see what I'm going to talk to you about. You guys have mastered that. The other thing, I like what you said here, though, is, and this is where most of the other ones are failing, even the ones that are IVR replacement, is the training. They're not spending enough time with the small to medium business owner, making sure that the AI voice is trained properly. They just feed it a little bit of information, and all of a sudden it's hallucinating and talking about a competitor. We can all listen to them. People record them and post them on YouTube. So go find some. But
you're absolutely right. It's at the moment it's not refined enough to be self-managed. And we say put the guardrails up. So we give you those guardrails. We give you templates. There's dozens and dozens of templates. You can build a template of the voice you want for your business, and then it's adopted throughout, and you can have multiple types of voices. The call recordings now within the platform are all done by our AI tool, which again we give free, where there's companies out there just selling that service. It's free within the culture of what we do. And I think it is critical that you will turn people off from AI as quickly as you turn them on. We had that, voicemail in the early days. Nobody really knew about it. And a lot of people, I hate voicemail, I never use it, turn it off. And actually, it was a great tool if it was used and trained properly. So I think we need to learn from the past. And I think there's a huge awareness. But like I say, it's different spaces for AI. We need to hone in what is the voice replacement service you're trying to get right with your current setup. And like I say, always take it back to the customer experience, increasing revenues and bottom line value in your business and their business. It's no good saying we can put hundreds of AI agents in if it's going to cost them more than their revenue and turnover. It's not going to work.
So Martin, thank you for talking about AI. Now the direction I'd like to take this conversation is in talking about the service providers. So, you're an industry veteran and you're someone who's helped, telecom startups grow their businesses. Here's my question. What's something many service providers and their owners may be getting wrong today, especially as we see this rapid change and this adoption of AI and, compression on price, because of commoditization and so forth. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because I'll talk about it and frame it for the UK marketplace. Most of the telecoms organizations that have been around that 30-year cycle, most of the owner principals have got the Ferraris, they've got their place in Spain, they've got the recurring revenues from maintenance contracts, and they're still quite happy. The only difficulty I think they face is the realization if they did want to retire, they have these aspirational figures up here, and actually they're right down here, if at all. And that's because of size, type of business, and the conversion that they need to do with their bases. So I think there's a problem there. I think there's a problem with the culture at corporate level. I think the corporate level guys have a very long, protracted kind of way of working. And I think for SMEs, that doesn't work. You can't do all the PS charging to an SME. Oh, I'm going to charge you, let's say, $1,000 to come and assess your layout and what you do and how you do it. Hang on a minute, I can't afford that. So you've got to find some middle ground. And I generally think that training and understanding and making sure you get the answers right are really important. And you'll open up more doors if you understand your customer and don't rush at the sell. Let's get the detail in there. Let's understand the customer's needs and requirements. And let's kind of nurture that relationship. The one thing you can guarantee, the PBX functionality is 99.9% the same across all vendors of VoIP platforms. The differentiation comes when you start talking about the new attributes and understanding the customer's needs. And you're going to double, treble your revenue per seat, per user, and it's going to make you a better business. But I think partners in some cases are finding it very hard to do that transition. I think in the UK, there's been a lot of order takers, not sales professionals. And sure. I think, again, it gets back to education. We need to show them that, your commission, Mr. Salesperson, when you just sign an order, is running at. If you could upsell, and it's not a heavy upsell, suddenly you're going to double, treble your commission. Now, we're of a generation, if you were given a chance to earn more commission, you went out and you did it, and you wanted that revenue stream into your back pocket.
Ken will remember me talking about at a previous company that we both worked at together, incremental revenue, please, upgrades, upcharges. It is so easy, in my opinion, to add additional line items to an existing customer. So new opportunities are great, but I also think people sometimes forget about farming their own base, their own customers, with just opportunities where many times the customer doesn't even know that you offer that other product.
And if you look at the service providers, many of them are probably on 5th, 6th, 7th generation of VoIP platforms. They've got all of these in their portfolio, but they're not selling 5 out of the 7. They only got 2 that they run with, and it's probably because they've got different features. I would like to think that we can overarch all of those, and base churns will become easier as we start using BERT to do some of those heavy lifting and shifting moments. But it streamlines your business. It means you don't have to have the knowledge with one person and they're on holiday, which means a quarter of your base that was the old base can't actually be serviced and supported because you don't have the knowledge in-house anymore when they're away. I think it's a time that we're at now where streamlining, simplifying the way you work, the way you support is going to be the way forward. And it's going to help those people with those bases. And of course, increase the value of their business when they do want to exit. Because if they find a buyer, they want to know, can I take some heads out? Can I make this business? So, well, we've done it with AI. We've done it by streamlining the product choice. We've taken out the 5 or 6 different VoIP platforms, and we now have one. It's going to help everybody in that food chain to move to where they need to get to. There will be a point in time that this is moving so fast. You still use telephone numbers like we do, and you still have red, amber, green status on the desk phone. Well, as you know, with our platform, we get presence across multiple services. And I think as we move forward, I've challenged one of the industry leading people, couple actually, in the UK, and we are in agreement. They don't know when. I think it'll be sooner than they think. You won't need a number, whether it's mobile, whether it's desk. This won't exist. You'll just know, your systems will know Dave, Ken, and we can talk 24/7. But if one of my staff try to get hold of you, no, it's normal business hours. Yeah, but AI will sort that out and actually take the note, and it will put the appropriate action in place. So I do think there will become a time where there will be no telephone numbers. You'll just have the ability to talk to somebody because the ether knows that you're associated in a way that allows that to happen. So we've got a lot of transitioning coming up that will come off the back for businesses with CRMs, integration in CRMs, and call flows. We all talk about IVRs, hunt groups, etc. But it's still current. Most businesses still use them. But really, why would you need to do that? You really want the call flows probably to act alongside your CRM flows. So if this person's not there, you try this person in the CRM because that's the way it cascades. Or you go up the food chain, that's their manager. Well, that manager's not there, so I go sideways to another manager. And that's all in your CRM. Why would you have 2 systems running? Why would you have all that energy spent and understanding? So I think if I was a pure telecoms, this is again in the UK, I think your time is numbered unless you understand the culture of the MSPs, the way they're looking after the wider, broader spectrum. So I'd encourage them to either become a mini MSP and take on more and lock your customer. I think the risk is many of those partners that you have will have systems that are legacy, they're not updated. That is just prime for somebody to go in and say, oh, would you like all these features? I can do it for less than you're paying that. It's gone. Yeah. And so their bases could be eroded very quickly overnight. And so I think it really is time they inward look into their businesses and understand what the change needs to be today. And am I choosing a partnership like with yourself at P2P Labs? Am I choosing a partnership that's going to bring it to the table for me? They're going to bring those ideas. They're going to have speed of foot to give me the right things at the right time so that I de-risk my business, because that's my pension in many cases. Yeah, that's what I've worked hard for.
If you could sit down with a brand new owner who's just getting into the MSP or CSP space. So everything you talked about for the most part was some form of embedded 5-year, 10-year, 30-year, I think you mentioned, service provider. But, there's a lot of young people out there that want to get into the telecom space. Here's your opportunity. You're sitting across from them.
Okay. If I was
Where do they
honest with
start?
you,
What do you tell them? What do you tell them?
if I was to I'll take my son as a point in question here. He's 30 now. He's followed the telecoms route by sitting in the back of the car. He purposely went and he works for the timber industry. But even after the years he's been working for me, and he's got 5 directorships, he still to this day is kicking himself that he didn't get into telecoms, because the timber industry moves quite slow. The trees take a long time to grow and you've got to plan ahead. He's technology savvy. And if I personally wanted to start a career now, I would get a clean piece of paper and I would sell my product, and you could have a whole business growth plan that's just based on working with Microsoft, whether it's Microsoft Direct, whether it's Microsoft over the top Teams that we offer, so you don't need the voice license, whether it's the Microsoft information coming into the analytics. I would culturally, as 380 million users of Microsoft, only 25% have a voice attachment for Microsoft. So that's 75% of 380 million global users. And you don't need many to have a very successful business and be able to sit on your speedboat and do the nice things in life. So personally, I would take a clean sheet of paper. I would personally just say I'm a Microsoft partner specialist. That's what I would do. But then there's a lot of mopping up where people don't have Microsoft. And so that encourages me as well, that this product sits in both camps. It works in both camps, and it can make you very wealthy very quick. But I think once you've understood it, you should then have the passion to just grow and grow and grow. This is, I describe it in the UK. When we started back in 91, there was a gold vein, just, it was about a foot down. This gold vein in time, where we are, you just got to scratch the dust off the top and you've got a much fatter gold vein to go after. This is the time to really work hard and take the caps off your salespeople. Let your salespeople earn as much as they want, because if they're earning, your business is earning. Yeah, you retain ownership of the customer, you make sure that you're billing. But those salespeople need the money, the drive to get up and go out and sell these products. And the products, when, as you know from looking at ours, when you did, they kind of sell themselves. It's not really a big steep learning curve. It's kind of like, wow, I didn't know we could do these things, in this cohesive way as well. So I would personally, I'd start and just get very much behind unified communications. It's now mobile only if you want. You don't have to have desk phones. You don't have to even have a tablet. You can run everything through mobile. It couldn't be easier. And all you need is a Bluetooth headset or a headset of some sort. So the technology is allowing you a very complex sell. You don't need to know as much as you did at the beginning. Your engineers don't need to know with Bert as much. And you can have a very successful business. And that's what I would do personally. And when you look at your competitors, I won't name them because you've been involved with some of them. But there's one that you mentioned some time ago. They haven't changed their interface for nigh on a decade. Right. To me, that's a sin. That is the one thing. There's two things that touch the business: the interface for their communications and their telephone bill. And every telephone bill that you get through in this country, it's gone down a lot. But 20, 30 years ago, it was one of the top 10 items in charge wise into that business. It has changed because call charges have come down or been removed. But now we're adding more and more software suites. Actually, it's probably going back up again. And it's probably lumped in with your CRM software and your other services. So it's always on the FD's mind. Therefore, it's always on the MD's mind. So just remember the classic sales rule: get in with the person that's going to put the pen on the paper and give you the deal. Don't waste your time trying to get in through the back door. Get in, make that decision, show
decision makers are, it's all about the decision makers. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Right. So I heard you use the word excite. And so as you look forward over, say, the next 18 months, what excites you in the telecom space?
Oh, that's a real challenging question. I think what excites me is that I want my partners to be at industry awards winning trophies and awards for innovative this or solution this. I want those people that have invested their trust and faith in Boom Comms to actually be the ones up there getting the prizes. That would make me more proud. I don't want a prize. I don't want to go to these industry things. I've done enough of that. But I just want those people to be recognized as capable. But more importantly, I think for the first time we have, and forgive me for saying this, relatively small businesses compared to the Goliaths, they're working smarter, faster, and giving better solutions. As long as I can keep ahead of the game for you guys and for the other partners that Boom have across the globe, then I think that's my task. But I'd love to see the innovation continue, which, looking at our roadmap, it's not going to stop for the next 18 months, I can tell you that. And so it's really, really interesting. But I do think that the AI, we're not going to be changing IVRs, hunt groups, time of day plans, all those features and functions of a PBX in Unify. That's table stakes. The only thing that's going to change now as we move forward is the AI aspect. It's that growth and power in AI. It's going to allow every company to be 24/7. It's going to allow every company to have a breadth of staff that can cope with any volume of business coming into it. And I think that's exciting. And that is what the global economy needs. We need to underpin, doesn't matter what business you're in, steel making, fabrication, caravans, whatever it is, leisure industry. We have got to be the underpinning aspect of that. If you can't communicate, then you're dead in the water. And now communications is a global communications. It's not just a phone. We keep calling them PBXs still in the UK, but that's private branch exchange. That's what it was.
Right.
And I think we've got to respect that. And it's about making any country more efficient and more profitable. And that all comes back to, if you can't communicate, you're dead. Simple as that. So the uptime you mentioned at the beginning, 100% uptime for 5 years, that's important. Yeah.
Right.
Innovation, technologies, product, and thinking about the verticals. I don't know how many schools you've got in America, but if you had a feature that you've just given to one and it fits all, there's your marketing campaign. Dave, I know you've got your marketing on. It's looking at, hotels, and you look at Las Vegas, there's probably 400,000 endpoints, but they're nothing more than a bit of a pickup, talk to reception, or I need this food delivered, whatever.
Room service.
It's a dumb, yes, it's dumb, really. It's an intercom. It's not a phone system requirement, but the businesses behind them in those hotels have to be the best. And to be the best, you've got to have the features. You've got to have the capability. And you think about the bad press. If your hotel caught fire and you needed to ring every single room in that hotel, the hotels in Las Vegas, I think, have got 7,000 rooms, some of them. You haven't got the people to do it. But if you've got AI that's going to persevere to do it until it's contacted somebody, understands where they are in the building, can articulate that back to a centralized system, share that with a software suite that you can then tell where everybody is. When the fire brigade turn up. There's all sorts of aspects. Every time you think of a situation, AI will enhance it and make it easier, better. So I only use that as an example because you wouldn't probably think of a hotel in need of some of the AI aspects, but just that sensitive one, if a fire was to go through a building, could be the same with a school, could be a university campus or whatever. Yeah. Well, can I broadcast every pupil we've got the telephone number? Can we broadcast instantly? Talk to them, explain to them something's happened in the campus. You need to do this. You're designated to go to this location. Do you know where that is? Yes, I do. Okay, I don't know. I'll send you a map. This is where AI starts becoming very usable.
Yeah. I mean, Ken and I worked with a company that was in the hospitality space, and the idea of a smart room that actually knew your specific brand that was your preferred. It knew what room temperature you like, so that when you arrived, so if you said I'm arriving in 3 hours, it knew to have the room at the temperature one. If they had motorized blinds, they would open them. If you prefer a light room, if you prefer a dark room, they would close the blinds, et cetera, et cetera. All based on your profile from the application for the hotel that you're utilizing, whether it's a Marriott franchise or a Wyndham or whatever franchise, Waldorf Astoria. So you absolutely are correct. There are so many use cases, I think is the word I'm looking for, that AI will absolutely benefit and make things better. And I think that's important, right? Now,
but it's also the importance of capturing. You need to capture all of those duties and jobs and functionalities that are taking place, and you need to then transcribe and understand and articulate the outcome. Just to cut across you slightly, but in the UK, we have a zero tolerance for swearing in schools and hospitals. But I know, because I sat on a local committee, only 25% get reported because the staff are too embarrassed to report it because they don't want to get the patient in trouble or the person calling in. AI can sit there benign in the background and report on 100%. Yeah. Then you have true stats. Yeah, because
I'm not so sure in America that's going to fly.
But there was one country I spoke to in Europe, and I said about call recording, and they said, no, we don't need call recording. I said, well, everybody, no. The whole country is corrupt. We do not need call recording. And I thought it was a classic man. I'd never considered that actually there's certain, I won't say which country it was, but it was a country that surprised me. Yeah.
That's funny. So Martin, you're sitting at a table.
Yep.
And across from you is your younger self at the start of your career. What do you say to yourself?
Get up off your backside and work as hard as you can. Even though I'm a workaholic, I have 1 week off a year, have done for 30 years. Even though I'm always available, I still think I could have worked harder. And the other thing for me, if I'm honest with you, I had a young son, a wife, a mortgage. Don't be scared. This is the time I didn't have any of the capacity of opportunity that there is today. Yeah, I still did that. And I've had multiple businesses, and I've sold, I think it's 7 and bought 4. And I've really enjoyed the journey, but I could have done more. And I think just the opportunity is there. And to give you a little bit of a insight. The first company was a company called Pure Telecom, and the MD was an amazing salesperson, just amazing. And he used to go into a pub, or he had a gardener come and cut his lawn, or he was doing something and he got to speak to a young person, mostly guys, but and he said, "Oh, you've got a good way about you. Do you want a better job? Do you want a job? This is in 1991 in the UK where you can earn over 100,000 uncapped." Yeah. So we had people from the Navy, we had people from bars, we had gardeners. They came and joined us. Some of those people today have businesses turning over 50 to 200 million pounds turnover, and they
Good for
started
them.
off. And he
Yeah.
created the belief in them that the market was ripe. We had deliberalization. Everybody, and the tipping point was decades later, where 51% of the marketplace were using an alternative to the incumbent that had 100% of the market share. I
Right.
think it's better for a small business to win business than a corporate. I think they're slow, they don't have the technologies right, they don't have the features right. We have got that edge at the moment. So I would say work as hard as you can. I love the culture that I hear about in America. I've not traveled America a lot. I've been to half a dozen
We'll get you
different
over here.
cities. Well, I've done, I won't name them, but I've done some of your key cities. But what I would say is the bit that really excites me about America is the appetite to do well, the appetite that anybody can become a millionaire in America by working hard. And the fact that you have, if you look at the opportunity in front of you, you're at least 10, 20 times the size and scale of opportunity than there is in the UK. So working hard over here, you've got 10% chance of what you've got in America. You get it right, you take it through. And I would say concentrate. Don't be all things to all men. If you find a good channel, stick at it and get as much of that business as possible. In the early doors, I think we had 50%, believe it or not, of undertakers in the UK used our services because we found a way of talking to them that they liked, they understood. We talked about feature, advantage, benefit in those days, and you were indoctrinated about talking to the customer. And that old fashioned, as you'll know, is two of these, one of those. It works. There's old sales techniques, KISS, keep
Right.
it simple, stupid. All of
Uh-huh.
those old things
Yeah.
actually work.
Yeah.
And by the way, when we weren't even on the planet, I had a friend in the UK that was flying around worldwide for Hoover because he used those same techniques back then. And they couldn't understand how he was out selling everybody in America. And that was before the homes in the UK had electric. And he's telling them about how good these Hoovers are going to be. And they ended up flying around the world. And I just, all the way back then, that culture hasn't changed. And America excites me beyond
Right.
all belief. Yeah. It's such a great place to be just get on, do it. There's nothing stopping you, is there? At the end of the day.
So I have one last question, Martin, but
Of
before I
course.
ask it, I always want to ask Ken, does he have that one question that maybe has been even generated based on this conversation, or maybe he had one that was, in the back of his mind that he wanted to ask when we were on this podcast. So Ken, do you have something you'd like to ask of Martin?
I am going to ask a non-technical and semi-personal. So Martin, you said you would have told your young self to work harder. What do you do, to blow off the steam from working so hard, right? What are your personal hobbies? How do you you know what I mean? How do you relax when you
That's
go, 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 and you've been going for 30, 40 years, man?
yeah.
So
I am absolutely the wrong person to ask the question because I am a workaholic.
Mhm.
I enjoy work. My absolute passion is when I have new startup businesses or I buy a business, it's taking the staff on a journey. That gives me such delight. And to see their salaries increase, preparing that I know I'm going to sell that business at some point. So I want that person to go from X, double it up on my journey, give them the chance to double it up on the next journey to get them recognized. I had one girl that worked in our first business. She joined us from working at British Gas on a call center. And we doubled her wages when she joined us because that was the going rate. By the time we sold the business, we doubled it again. So that philosophy
Wow.
was inbuilt then. About 8 years later, I saw this girl running towards me, calling my name. I had no idea who she was. And she had auburn hair. And she said, I had to say, I don't know who you are. And she said, it's X. And I said, you silly. I said, you had blonde hair when I employed you. She said, yeah. So pleased I met you. She said, I owe my life to you and what I've done. I said, what do you
Wow,
mean?
that's great.
She said, I fly first class all over the world. I'm on a large six-figure salary. And I said, hang on, I told you at the time you were a superstar. Why did you not believe me when I was telling you? And I said, well done, because it's all about the people. You have no business. So to me, workaholic, love the people that work for me and trust in me. I think that's the key thing for me. If somebody gives me their trust, I've got to do the job for them. Yeah. The benefit to me is yes, I do okay at the
That's
end of it.
great. That is so refreshing to hear from someone, especially long time and sold so many businesses and started so many businesses. I think that's a missing factor in a lot of businesses today. Love hearing that.
Yeah, I'll give you a word. So this is, I can't give you his name, it wouldn't be fair to, but let's just say he's one of the biggest names in our industry. And I had breakfast every 6 months with him, and he gave me a word. I had to look it up. Hang on, let me just see if I can find it. 2 seconds.
Sure.
Um, oh, where's he gone? Hang on. You're gonna have to edit this. Sorry, guys. I just want to give. I
It's
just
all
want to give you,
good.
because you may know this word. I had no idea. Um, right, here we go. And he said, "Congratulations for signing up the US." By the way, he's but and you, Martin, you are indefatigable. And he said, "You never give up, and you have the desire to work on." Even through adversity. So for those that know me, I've been really ill in my life. I've even had to do billing for my intensive care bed 25 years ago. Yeah. And so I just have that deep passion, yeah, for people, for the product, for our industry. Telecoms is so exciting. I know it seems bizarre to say that, but this to me is my career. And I absolutely love it.
No,
And
it
I think
shines
it's
through.
important.
It shines through, Martin. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you can see that you radiate, that you love this industry like we do.
Agree? Yes,
So here's my
absolutely
last
agree.
question. I think you'll
Yes.
like this last question as well. What is one thing in our ecosystem that we're not talking about, but perhaps we should be?
Mm. In our ecosystem, that's quite an interesting question. If I had my CTO with me, I'd defer that to him because he's the guy that sits on a planet looking down on the rest of us and designs and builds these things. I don't know, but I think if you don't know, don't worry. Once it becomes obvious to you, it's how quick do you react to that one thing that's not in your ecosystem, and can you do it? And it's recognizing it, calling it out, and adopting it in as soon as you can. And don't worry if you're behind somebody else. Let them fall over. Let them get the scuff marks on their knees and have
Mhm.
the troubles and tribulations. Because let's face it, with technology does bring its own burdens and tribulations. Yeah, sometimes that can affect your customer relationship. Sometimes you'll lose
Absolutely.
customers. But I found over the years, you have to sometimes go through those pains. We try to reduce that now. We have a very, very serious way of developing and deploying our software because we are now a software house. That's what we do. Um, but I think I can't give you an answer because I haven't got that Steve Jobs's kind of brain. But I think it is a case that we need to just be aware, have partnerships like we have, because you'll bring things to me that I won't be aware of in the UK for sure.
Right.
And let's see if it can be adopted in both countries, or as we go, we are in Europe, we are in Asia as well. Let's move those ideas across the globe because, like I said, it's a flat Earth now. We're all on the same playing field. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I just want those ideas to come in and agree with people like yourselves that have got a huge pedigree and background. What should we be doing? This isn't about us just giving you the ideas and telling you what we think it is. It's about a collaborative way of working and
Yes.
understanding. And I think that's critical in
Yep.
today's world. Okay, I
Martin,
hope I
Absolutely.
answered that.
Yeah.
no, that was a great answer. And, you know, Ken and I, we really do appreciate you joining us today.
You're
Um,
welcome.
Thanks again for spending time with us.
Yeah.
Ken, you
Okay,
want to take it away?
Absolutely.
thank you.
Martin, thanks again. And for all those listening out there, thanks for joining us and hitting those buttons down below. And you can see what else we're up to at engagep2p.com. So until next time, keep building, keep leading, and as always, keep it at 100% uptime.
Definitely. Take care, guys. Nice to have a chat with you. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Martin.
Bye.
Bye bye.